All right, Matthew chapter 11, verses 20 to 30. We're just going to jump right into it. This is the words of Jesus now, and I'm going to read it to you in the Message version because it's so beautiful. It says, "Are you tired? Are you worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Who wants to join that team? I mean, I am in on that team. I'll show you how to take a real rest. You know, hang around me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. This is the life that Jesus invites us to. So I'm gonna title this talk, "Getting My Groove Back." Getting my groove back. So look at your neighbor and say, "Today we're going to get your groove back." You know, say it, I'm telling you. So rhythm and groove, it's an interesting thing because I feel like as an individual, you either have a lot of it or you have very little of it. And in case you're wondering, I fall under the category of having very little of it. I've tried to learn a few instruments over the years, and it just doesn't really click with me. For example, I'll tell you how bad it is. When everyone's clapping to a song, I'm the guy who has to look around at all the people around me to make sure I'm staying on the right beat, and clapping and singing at the same time. Forget about it. Nope. I'm either singing or I'm clapping, never both. So musically, I feel like you either have that special gene or you don't. Now my brother Tony, he has the musical gene. He can pick up any instrument and just play it without any previous practice, and it's pretty frustrating coming from my stance. But so when I was in the early stages of writing this talk, I was talking to Tony about it. I was getting his feedback, and when I told him the title, "Getting My Groove Back," he said, I think groove is something that's taken for granted. I don't think it gets enough appreciation. So I said, hold that thought, and I got a pen and some paper, and I ran back and said, go on. And Tony, he went on to break down how a band works and the importance of the bass. So he said, the bass adds rhythm to adds movement to the rhythm section. It adds. Oh gosh, where did I go? Hold on. Where am I at? All right, hold on. All right. Nope, I still haven't found it. No, I know. So he said, yeah, it's the note that the melody sits on. There it is. All right, and without it, the whole bottom drops out of the song. And so he said, you can make an argument that the bass is the most important instrument of the band, and yet it kind of takes a back seat to everything else. And then to get another perspective, I asked Matt McDonald, who is a professional musician, and he's one of the worship leaders here. He was the handsome gentleman who was leading us this morning, and he said that bass adds movement to the rhythm section. And when the bass and the drums lock in together, it creates what he called the pocket. And the pocket is what adds rhythm. The pocket is the thing that makes you, bob your head. Rhythm is the thing that, when you hear the pocket, when you're in the pocket, you make that face. It's like, ooh, okay. That's the rhythm. That's the groove. And so Tony, he makes the case that rhythm and groove aren't appreciated enough, that we undervalue their importance. And I think he's onto something. And I think it goes much farther than just musically. So rhythm was and is one of the main cornerstones of creation and life. We were designed with rhythm, and we were designed to live in an environment of rhythm. God, the rhythm maker, designed us with rhythm. The beat of our heart is rhythmic. Our calendar is rhythmic. It has pace and routine. God, he created day, he created night. He created, seconds and minutes and moments and weeks and months and years. We have beginnings to things. We have endings to things. Our environment is innately built around rhythm and pace and routine. And I want to prove this to you. God, in the very beginning of Scripture, if you look all the way back at the Genesis account, he creates everything in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested, but the very first thing he does before anything else is he makes day and night. And it says, there was evening and there was morning the first day. Each day he does more and more, but the Bible is adamant in letting us know that there was evening and there was morning the second day. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. You know, the rhythm of night and day, the rhythm of numbers, the rhythm of it all. And we know God, he didn't have to make it this way. He didn't have to give us day and night. He didn't have to give us sleep. You know, he could have made, he could have created the space and the environment that we live in with it's just continual. It's just never ending. It just goes on and on and on until one day we are removed. But he didn't do that. We have new days and new dawns and new beginnings, new seasons, new months, new eras. All of this designed by God. So now there's this perfect environment God creates for man. It's this utopia. It's this place of ecstasy. It's Eden. It's the garden. There's organic fruits. There's waterfront property. You know, God, he makes Adam. He takes a rib. He makes Eve. There's no clothes in sight. And they're put in this place, and they're going to live days there, and they're going to live with God, and it's going to be amazing. Now, in this environment, God creates choice, because without choice, there's no love. We're not puppets. And so God, he gives man a choice. He puts one tree of all the trees in the garden that Adam and Eve, they can't have. I want you to notice here how God, he stacks the odds in our favor. You know, there are maybe thousands of trees in this garden, and there's only one tree that we can't eat from. There's only one tree we can't have, but true to our nature, we want the one thing we can't have. We want the one thing we're not supposed to have, and Adam and Eve, in this moment, they err. They take the one thing we're not supposed to have, and they do wrong, and the Bible defines it as sin. In this moment, they missed the mark set by God. The mark was so obvious and so clear, so apparent for so much life, so much blessing, so much fulfillment, and they miss the mark and take the one thing they're not supposed to have, and in this moment, our environment is compromised. The Bible says that they go in Genesis chapter 3, verses 5 to 7, they make this choice that is wrong, and by definition, sin, and we see them in one of the scenes we get next, they are sewing leaves together for underwear. I mean, just think about how absolutely insanely difficult this would be. I mean, you thought detangling your Christmas lights each year was difficult. Try sewing leaves together to make underwear. From that moment on, man has been trying to get his groove back. From that moment on, we've been trying to recover Eden. We've been trying to recover the rhythm. We've been trying to recover that peaceful place that God designed us for. But if you haven't noticed, it has never been more difficult than it is in 2015. The fast-paced, adrenaline-filled lives that we live is nothing short of astounding. And yet we still desire to be in this healthy place and this peaceful place, and, well, it's the groove. It's that place that Matt was talking about. It's the pocket, that place where your life finds rhythm and flow and groove, and it's just you're in the groove. We want to find that groove today, but it's difficult. There was a study done in 2010 by a couple of Harvard psychologists who were looking into this as they were looking into the human mind. They were studying the attention span of our minds, as well as how prone our minds are to wandering. And they found something pretty alarming. They found that 46.9% of the time, humans are not thinking about what they're currently doing, which, if you think about it, it explains a lot. Hashtag traffic. Nearly half the time, people are not thinking about what they're currently doing. You know, we are in a state of partial attention. Not full attention, which can create some rhythm and some groove, but partial attention. This is one of the quotes taken from the article. Unlike other animals, humans spend a lot of time thinking about what isn't going on around them, contemplating events that happened in the past, might happen in the future, or may never happen at all. See, and then it gets worse. You know, they probe deeper because they thought, I wonder if there's a link between a wandering mind and unhappiness. And so they asked the question, well, if that's the case, what comes first? You know, unhappiness and then the mind wanders? They assumed that was the case because if you're unhappy with what you're currently doing, then your mind would want to wander. But they found something pretty shocking. It was the opposite. When your mind wanders now, unhappiness settles in later. Now this is really revealing. This explains a lot. Like the case that they make is half the time our minds are wandering to unhappy thoughts, And so as a result, we just withdraw to unhappiness. All right, so I want to prove this to you. This is how it works. For instance, you're here on a Sunday. It's a day off. You're enjoying yourself. You got the family around you. You're going to go to lunch afterwards, and maybe the beach or the park. But in your mind, you're just caught up in the fact that your boss called a 1 p.m. meeting tomorrow with just you, and you can't stop thinking about it because what is he or she going to say? Am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen? And you're replaying the conversation right now in your head, and it hasn't even happened yet. It's Sunday. You got a day off. You should be enjoying yourself. You're with your kids. You're hearing an amazing sermon, and yet you're not even paying attention to that because you're just focused on tomorrow. Because tomorrow at 1 o'clock, my boss called a meeting, and am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen if I lose my job? How are we going to pay for the car? What about the kids? What are we going to do about the pay for college? You're just caught up in that. It hasn't even happened yet. It's not even real, and it's destroying what is real and keeps you from fully engaging in what's happening right now. If that's what our mind tends to wander toward, it's no wonder that we're off our groove. So we have a mind that tends to wander to negative thoughts. And on the flip side of that, we have so many different things fighting for our attention, fighting for our interests, fighting for our schedules. You got the news, Facebook, Instagram, fashion, sports, TV, all that. And I mean, just like think about work in 2015. The concept of going to work, coming home, and leaving your work somewhere is yesteryears. Now our desk, it's on this little device, and we could take it home with us. You can be at the dinner table, but there's your desk. You can be at the ball game, or you can be in bed, but there's your desk. And so what we've gotten in this fast-paced society is we are continually, pressing against that place where we have so much attention on so many different things, and we're pressing up against lack of creativity and lack of flow and lack of rhythm, and rather than getting away, rather than taking a rest and taking a break, mentally, physically, and oftentimes in our soul, we just keep pushing through. We just continue to push on, and our hormones are affected, our minds are affected, our bodies are affected, and ultimately, our souls are affected. What are we going to do in the world that we live in? I mean, I'm just completely not okay with us having a great service on Sunday and being stressed by noon on Monday. That doesn't make any sense to me. As many of us, we love God and we love being in community and we're on the spiritual journey. And it's like, man, I just love going to church on Sunday, but we're just as stressed as can be by Wednesday, Thursday. Completely caught up and entangled over the next day. We have a project and a board meeting, and we have this pending, and emails, and all the text messages. But, I hope Sunday rolls around. I hope Jason has one of those good talks. I hope we have one of those good songs to sing, because, boy, am I going to need it by Sunday. Wait a minute. That's not what God designed us for. We're still sowing leaves together, hiding in the bushes, with hopes that things might get better. I'm just going to keep on toiling. I'm just going to keep answering all the emails and all the text messages. And what I think I really need is I'm just going to go to Maui. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And that's great. But what's amazing is oftentimes you can get away and yet not really get away. And it's interesting. Jesus in Matthew 11, 28, 29, and 30, he says, get away with me. It's as if he knew what we'd be facing in 2015. He says, get away with me. Well, get away, but I have to get stuff done. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. And my hope for you and for this community is that we become a place and we learn how to take a real rest. We learn how to truly get away and live a healthy life to our core. Now, I'm just completely unwilling to sacrifice health for success, however we define that today. That's not success. I mean, you might add up some numbers in your bank account, but if your soul is toiling and anxious and still sowing leaves together, that's not worth it. I want us to live, just walk with God and enjoy the days that we do have. So Jesus says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Now, he would have been talking to ancient Jews, and the response would have been a resounding, absolutely yes. Because they had been toiling, sowing leaves together, trying to fulfill the law to get the groove back. Now, the law was an extensive list of rules and guidelines. What was originally the first 10 commandments, given to Moses, has now turned into hundreds of rules, making it impossible to be right with God. The inability to get in the groove was because they were not right with God. See, when you're disconnected from God, you're disconnected from the rhythm maker, and you're disconnected from the one who put your soul at a proper, sustainable pace. Jesus says, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. And here's where it gets interesting. Eugene Peterson, who wrote the Message Bible, he's prolific in the original language. He takes this verse, which in the ESV and other translations, it does not use this term, and he translates and says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And he's gotten some scrutiny for this translation. Many people say, well, how can you add the unforced rhythms of grace? What basis from the original language do you have for using that phrase? And I did some research, and I think I discovered why Eugene Peterson chooses to use this term rhythm, the unforced rhythms of grace. What Jesus says, in the original language, he uses this term yoke. Yoke in this ancient setting was a tool that would bind two animals together, typically two ox, to be efficient and effective in plowing a particular field. Now, in addition to that, ancient rabbis would use this term yoke all the time in their teachings. They would refer to it as the yoke of the law. And the yoke of the law was incredibly burdensome, and it added to the angst and the worry of the Jewish people. And Jesus shows up. He uses this term yoke in the original language of Matthew 11, 28, 29, and 30. He says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke. They've heard that before, but Jesus lets them know my yoke is fundamentally different. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus, he invites the people to live with him. He invites the people to walk with him. He invites the people to live with him. What's Jesus implying? He's implying that in this yoke that binds two animals together, oftentimes a farmer, instead of spending double the money and buying two healthy, beautiful, strong animals, if you used a yoke, you could get the price of two for one. Because you can get one healthy, beautiful, strong, mature ox, and you could yoke it up to a weaker, younger, inexperienced ox, but they would do the work of two experienced ox. Because the older, larger, strong, mature ox would set a pace that eventually the younger, weaker, inexperienced ox would finally yield to. Now, oftentimes, the younger ox would want to do what? Grab the harness and take off, and go too fast, or was too weak and could not keep up the pace. But the older, larger, stronger, mature ox would set a pace and a rhythm that eventually the younger, inexperienced ox would finally yield to, and there would be efficiency and there would be effectiveness, and the field would be completed. Jesus is saying, if you want to get your groove back, if you want to find some rhythm, if you want to find some pace and some peace, then come to me. Jesus has called you to a field, but understand, he has not called you there by yourself. Jesus has made himself available to you, and what he's saying is, I want to invite you, come join me, let's walk this field together, let's live this life together, let's go into work together, let's go to school together, let's go to the meeting together, let's go to the dinner table together, and I'll take you at a pace that's peaceful and restful and truly fulfilling. This is what Jesus offers. He offers a pace that's tailor-made for you. I looked up the term rhythm in the great source for all knowledge and wisdom, Wikipedia, and I discovered that Wikipedia defines rhythm as any regular, recurring motion. Regular, recurring motion. My life needs regular, recurring motion, which is interesting because one of the tortures used in war, I'm sure you're familiar with this, is to literally rob a prisoner of war of all rhythm, all routine, even the sense of time, night, day, or space or place. When that is taken from a human being, when you don't know if it's night, day, or where you are, insanity quickly sets in, which is just further proof. It's stress on a psycho level. It's proof that God has designed us in a way to live with rhythm and routine, not taking upon us more than God ever intended for us. Regular, recurring motion. Rhythm on the inside is predicated upon that which is constant, and that which is regular, and that which is recurring. So much of life is unpredictable. Have you seen it? Have you felt it? There's no guarantees. And to find rhythm in all of it, you have to find something faithful you can count on that has regular, recurring motion, or else you're going to end up like the guy on the dance floor who's dancing, the music gets cut, and there's, oh, man. You know what I mean? Like that guy. No one wants to be that guy. You need regular, recurring motion. Wait, hold on. So we look for what we think will be regular and recurring, but there's no promises. My job, my family, my friends, my things. That's what I'll kind of build my life around, but there's no promises. And all of a sudden, you're just, wait, what? Where do I? All of a sudden, you just can't seem to get your groove. That's why Jesus is the only true source of rhythm and pace for your life, because he's the only pure constant. One of the things I've heard, over the years, whether it be a high school student or friends of mine or even friends who are Christians who say, well, it's God's fault. He let Adam eat the fruit. Why would he let him do it if he knew what it would bring? Why did he let me do it? And it's easy to do that, to blame God. And, but you'll notice one of the patterns you see with someone who is out of rhythm is they're much more in tune with what's gone wrong than what's gone right. They're much more in tune with what they don't have than what they do have. They're much more in tune with what God has not given opposed to what God has given. And if you don't know this, I've had the privilege of tearing my ACL and having knee surgery, and know that I didn't just have a brain fart, I meant to say privilege, and here's why. After a surgery like that, there's a period of about a week where you can't really do anything by yourself. I couldn't stand up by myself, couldn't get food for myself, couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. My mom would have to help me out of bed, help me into the bathroom, and would have to spot me like a workout partner to make sure I wouldn't fall over. And the thing about that, though, is it reminded me just how awesome it is to walk. I was reminded how much of a joy it is to be able to run. And now I look for every excuse to run. And no, not long distance. I didn't miss it that much. But here, just take this Frisbee and throw it as far as you can because I just want to sprint after it. And now these are gifts that God had given me day after day after day, and yet I had never really acknowledged God for the gifts that they were. And if you're not careful, you'll be much more in tune with what you don't have and what you wish you had and how God messed up and how you wish the situation would come about instead of seeing all the blessings and just, man, isn't he good? Isn't he good? And the truth is, you guys, we can take this conversation to the next level real quick and really start to talk about blessings. So let's go next level. If we're going to be real and honest, the Bible's pretty clear that if you sin, the result is death. The Bible also says that we were born morally weak and frail. We are ungodly, and because we are ungodly, we miss the mark. And because we miss the mark, we are enemies with God. We are enemies of God. It's quite a dilemma. First sin, then death. And no one was exempt from it. Romans 5 describes what this looked like. It says, so death, this huge abyss separating us from God, dominated the landscape. Separation from God, that is death. Not being able to walk with him, not being able to live with him, not being able to do life with him. And it dominated the landscape. But 2,000 years ago, God looks down at his creation, he looks down at the planet, and he sees the condition of a broken, hurting humanity, and they are weak, and they're ungodly, and they're enemies, they're at odds with God. And what does the heart of God say? Romans 5, verses 6 to 8. For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person, one would even dare to die. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still weak and ungodly and sinners and enemies, completely unaware, God puts on the form of the created, subjects himself to his own creation, allows Roman soldiers that he designed and he created to nail him to a tree that he also created. Why? Love. Love that you and I are not aware of. It has been said that you can plumb the depth and understand love based on the expense it costs the giver, how much it costs the giver, and how least deserving the recipient is. If that is love, then this is love like we have never seen on this planet. God gave himself. He substituted himself for you. And he died a sinner's death. Talk about a gift. Man, isn't he good? Good? Isn't he awesome? So what do we yoke ourselves to? How about pure, constant, consistent love? Hebrews 13:8 says, "For Jesus doesn't change. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He is always himself." Which means the beat won't change. The beat won't change. It's the same beat. A beat of love, a beat of grace, a beat of compassion, mercy, invitation. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Which means you may have messed up yesterday. You might have your words for today, and tomorrow, we don't know what tomorrow brings. But the one thing we can count on is his love will be there. His perfect love will be there. 1 John 4:18 tells us that perfect love casts out fear. Fear, the great rhythm destroyer. Fear who specializes in interrupting groove. There's places it can't go. So your doubts, your failures, your inadequacies, your fear of being alone, your fear of stability and money, your fear of being different, your fear of giving up control. It has no power. It has no say. It has no bargaining chip in comparison to God's love. And part of fear is the expectation of bad things tomorrow. And it forces us to get outside of the rhythm and the pace that God has for us. But perfect love, perfected, finished, accomplished love. God perfected and finished his great act of love for all humanity. And now if we will believe in him and be caught up in him, it will completely wipe out and remove all fear. This is crazy, but as God followers, we've been given license to never fear again. Will challenging times come? Will there be difficult times? Life is difficult on this planet, and it has a way of doing that. But perfect love casts out all fear. The last year and a half for me has been nothing short of a roller coaster. Jason kind of talked about it a little bit last week, so sorry to say it again, but it started with going to Haiti, and I had essentially organized 4 nights of youth group, and I had to give a message each of the 4 nights. First of all, that's crazy. We're still in the relationship building stages with Ebenezer Ministries, and I could have gone down there and I could have totally bombed, and I could mess things up with us. I could have totally misrepresent us that there was a legit possibility of that happening. But luckily though, it didn't happen. But then Jason, he saw me speak when we were over there, and then he asked me to preach a message here at Brookview with no training, with no schooling. Again, crazy. And now I've kind of become his fill-in guy, which has now led to me going off to Australia in January to go to Bible college. Crazy. And what honestly should have been the scariest, toughest, most overwhelming, and anxious-filled season of my life has actually been the most amazing and most life-giving season because I think what happened is I finally found what it's like to be in rhythm with God for the first time. Completely trusting in his leading and his pace and his timing and his love. Jesus says, come to me. Come to me, come to me. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'll show you, if you'll come to me, I'll show you how to take a real rest. And I read it in the Message, and Jesus says, walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. And this is how I heard it. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. And you should see me. I've been doing this for weeks now. I just look like a crazy person. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. I just keep saying it over and over. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. God, I'm going to watch you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to work with you. I'm not going to feel pressure. I'm not going to try and please people. I want to walk with you. And if I'm going to do work, I want to work with you, and I'm going to keep my eyes on you. This is where I got to live. This is my groove. I'm going to stay right here at this sustainable pace. I'm going to answer to only you. I don't need to do that. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. The rhythm never changes. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. It's the same beat. Still has been, always will be. Yesterday, today, and forever. Now this brings us to one concluding scripture that I'll read. It's Matthew chapter 6. Listen to what Jesus says here, starting in verse 34. Just let this sink deep in your soul. Give your entire attention, listen now, to what God is doing right now. Give your entire attention. We're not talking 46.9%. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now. I'm talking Sunday, July 5th, right now. Some of you, your Tuesday has already taken captive your Sunday. Your Wednesday has terrorized the beautiful Sunday you do have. And he goes on, he says, don't get caught up. What does he say? He says, I turned my page too quick. He says, don't get caught up in tomorrow. You know, and if anyone has license to say, think about tomorrow, it would be Jesus. You know, death, burial, resurrection, ascension, second coming, like today is good and everything, but soon, guys, it's going to be amazing. But Jesus, he says, hey, walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. God, tomorrow I got, hey, today's Sunday. We're just going to live today. We're just going to live today. Oh, but tonight I got, it's just about 12 o'clock now. So we're not going to do 8 o'clock. We're just going to do 12 o'clock. So walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Okay? It's going to be a big week, though. Oh, well, it's not a week. It's just a day. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. It says God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes. That's called pace and peace and confidence and assurance and rest. Jesus says, come on, you and me, we make a great duo. Let's work together. Now, one step, here we go. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Yeah, that's the space. That's the space where you can be parent, spouse, friend, sibling. That's the space. And I pray that this week, guys, the Holy Spirit of Jesus he helps you live with the unforced rhythms of grace.